Hello YouTube. This morning in the picturesque village of Stamford Bridge on the border between the East Riding of Yorkshire and North Yorkshire. I'm still on the banks of the River Derwent and I'm actually in East Yorkshire at the moment, but we're going to have a wander up and down the river between here and the village of Kexby. So why don't you come along with me for the journey. So Stamford Bridge, not only mentioned in Doomsday Book, but recorded in prehistory before that. I'll have a think about that later on in the walk, but right now we're walking out of the village, which follows one of the main bridging points across the Derwent between York and Driffield and onwards to Bridlington. And we're going to find a footpath over a viaduct. And walk up to the old railway station. Now transformed to the old station club. And there seems to be lots of events happening. Looks like today we're refacing the old platforms. So today on another part of the old railway line that ran between York and Beverley. See here at Stamford Bridge, seems to be a lot of civic pride in the place. We're repainting the white lines along the platform edge. As well as the mainline platforms that are still in place, and a secondary platform still to one side, possibly for goods. And still the old buildings as well, judging by the space in front of it and the arches that are bricked up. Possibly for locomotives or rolling stock. So as we walk through the parkland, past the old railway station, the whole area has been transformed from derelict land to beautiful green lush parkland. So as we walk onto the bridge, you look down and start to see the river below us, but right now we're on the viaduct, and the viaduct is quite significant. As with other structures on this railway, it was the brainchild of the railway king George Hudson. Built viaduct running up to the banks of the river, and then actually across the middle of the river there was this short bridge, quite unique. We'll have a look at it properly as we walk back. Our return journey, we come underneath this viaduct, but after the railway closed in 1965, it was abandoned and decay set in, and within 10-15 years this viaduct was in a poor state of repair. Obviously since those days a lot of money has been spent, lots of refurbishment has taken place, and it's been transformed into cycleway and a walkway. so that people have access to nature along it. In fact, we look back now, we see these sleepers. These sleepers at one point would have stretched right across where the path is now, discouraging anyone from going across the bridge, because at one point it was very, very dangerous. So as we just step up onto the embankment, we turn around and see where the line would have gone into those trees. The embankment cuts away where bridge would have been over the road, which we can just make out through the trees down there, and the path below us. So come off the old railway line onto the main road towards York, the A166. But I thought I'd be walking along a footpath directly by the side of the road, but they've cut it into the trees, so there's a lovely barrier. Yes, we can see and hear the cars whizzing by, but for where we are, we've got the peace and quiet of the countryside. About 2 miles in, continuing to walk down these beautiful tree-lined byways. Sun's high in the sky, and out in the direct sunlight it's very, very warm, but in the shadows it's lovely and cool. Very gentle breeze, just keeping the heat off. So this week it's a completely different landscape to where we were last week. Here we are in the Vale of York. Everything, land is as flat as a pancake, whereas up in the Lake Districts, steep hills, huge rocks. When you're up in the fells, the views are changing every minute. You go around the corner, it's a completely different view. Places like this, in the Vale of York, you've got to walk a long way, the views change significantly. But you still got to look around you. You can take in the colours, the trees, so much to see. And the complete silence and peace, apart from the birds singing. So I've been walking for about an hour and done just short of 3 miles. At a junction where signposts behind us indicate that the Route 66 cycleway heads off up there, but our route continues down this byway, and the woods in the distance. We're going to be passing to the left of those. So just short of 4 miles in, and been walking along tarmac for the entirety of this walk. CKM Anno Domini 1723, it says above the door. It's flat, we see for miles. Oh, another one of these finger posts. And it says Public Bridleway, Scorby Lane 2 is where we've come from. Public Bridleway, Hull Road 1 1/4, which is where we're going to. So we've come down about another quarter of a mile from where we last stopped, and we found another finger post. And it's telling us, in the very faint lighting there, that it's Public Bridleway to Kexby, and it's 1 mile. So that takes us down to the bridge where we meet the River Derwent. And look at this! The tarmac byways have been replaced with chalk and dirt. A little bit softer on the feet, not much. So as we come into the woods, we've picked up the Minster Way. It's a long distance path which runs from Beverley Minster over the Wolds and down and across the Vale of York, ending at York Minster. It's about 50 miles. People do it in about a day. We are following the path towards Beverley now. In fact, we should be following this path for most of the way back to Stamford Bridge. So just bumped into somebody who's walking the Minster Way, who camped out in the woods here last night, and he's telling me that the path down by Kexby Bridge, where I'll be joining the River Derwent, is closed. But he's pointed out the route that he took across some byways over the field, cuts out that area and saves the hassle of walking all the way down and then having to walk all the way back again. So I'm going to walk along to the end of this track here, and there's going to be a fork, and we are going to head left. So the path behind me is the Minster Way, but we're not going to take any chances, because the path behind me out this way, it's just a track. It's not public right of way, but that will take us onto the river and avoid a path closure. And after a couple of 100 metres, we're already into the wild woods. Fallen trees, indistinct paths, but all the more exciting. My GPS has told me that I'm off track, but we're not bothered about that right now. Now to look at the greenery, the light through the trees, the shadows, and check out all the beauty of nature while we can and while we're off the path. So coming out of that woodland, back into the sunshine again, but we're continuing along the chalk path, the one that's not a bridleway. Now I've been told that at the end of this path there's a gate which goes into a field. Follow the side of that field and I'll end up by the River Derwent and on the path which I was wanting to take, following the Minster Way back up to Stamford Bridge. So we followed the track down, and as promised by the hiker that I met in the woodlands, here's a gate. It's got to go through this gate, over that field, and where you can see the line of trees, that's where the River Derwent is. So just about 200 metres. Walking around, managed to avoid going through this field of cows with their calves. To the end of this field, just going to go up onto this bank, and here you can see slow moving River Derwent. Apparently there were signs up in Stamford Bridge yesterday saying that this path down by Kexby Bridge, that there was a closure. This is why the guy that I saw over in the woods, that's why he did the diversion, and why he when he told me about it. Now, I haven't seen any signs. Admittedly, I hadn't been through the part of Stamford Bridge yet, which where the signs would have been on this path, but there was no signs from the other direction. So whether it was just a temporary closure, and now today it's all open again, I don't know. But I've managed to save myself a mile, and if I had have gone all the way down and found the path closed at Kexby Bridge, I'd have had to walk all the way back again, and that would have put probably nearly a mile onto my 9-mile route, so I would have found myself doing about 10 miles. So as we walk back along the banks of the Derwent, what do we know about the river? Well, it rises in the North York Moors, above Scarborough, just near Findingdale's Moor, and flows down towards Scarborough. But first, let's cross these stiles. So it rises near Findingdale's, up by Lilla Cross, and flows down towards Scarborough. But about 3 or 4 miles short, it swerves inland, flows through the flatland to Malton, to where it was originally navigable. From Malton, it meanders down past Kirkham Priory, through Buttercrum, and down to Stamford Bridge. It continues its course past where I'm sitting, underneath the Hull Road, down to Elvington, and down towards Skipwith and the Common and Bubbith, where it joins the River Ouse, which turns into the Humber and then goes out to sea. As we continue along the path to Stamford Bridge, let's have a think about what's happened in that little village over the centuries. Stamford Bridge's earliest claim to fame is the battle in 1066. King Edward the Confessor died. His natural heir was King Harold, although there had been some disagreements with his brother about who was the rightful heir to the throne. However, forces were building. Foreign countries wanted to test Harold's mettle. Could he defend England? During the summer of 1066, there was threats from Normandy, from France, and as a result, Harold based his troops on the south coast, expectant of an invasion and preparing himself for one. However, while he was on the south coast, near Hastings, that things were not right in the north of England, but off the coast of Holderness in East Yorkshire. There were 300 Viking longboats, and they were ready to sail up the Ouse to York and invade and conquer the northern counties, Northumbria and Mercia. Harold knew that he had to act, and he did. Harold gathered his troops and he marched his army 250 miles up the country. He marched them day and night. They marched without proper rest and then arrived in York. He quickly dealt with the Vikings in York at the Battle of Fulford, just to the south of the city. But word came, the Vikings were at Stamford Bridge, and by all accounts they were on the southern side of the river. Harold gathered his army, marched them down the road for 6-8 miles, and they crossed the river, not with the bridge that's there now, something far smaller, and they caught that Viking army unawares. There was a bloody battle. Vikings were slain. They had no idea that Harold was nearby. As far as they were concerned, he was on the south coast waiting for the French. Today there's no sign of the battle. There is a memorial, but there's no physical signs. Records said that there were bones of slain Vikings piled up outside the village for 50 years. Reports also said that of the 300 boats that were needed to bring the Viking invaders over in the summer of 1066, they only needed 24 to take the survivors home. Harold, however, had other issues to contend with. Barely able to take breath, word came again that the French, under the command of William, were about to cross the channel. Harold made his way south. He was too late. By the time he and his army arrived, William and his conquering forces were already ashore. And, as history tells us, Harold was killed in battle with an arrow to the eye. The rest, of course, is history. 1066 and all that. Let's crack on with the walk. There's only a couple of miles to go. As we come back towards Stamford Bridge, the viaduct comes into view, built in the 19th century by George Hudson. And we see how the arches go to the banks of the river, and there's a bridge spanning the top between the two ends of the viaduct. Supposedly a unique structure, and one of the main reasons why it was preserved, one of the reasons it avoided dereliction and demolition. We're going to continue underneath it. The main road bridge is just beyond. So thanks for joining me on this walk. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've managed to get this far, I'm guessing that you'd have. So do us a favour, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, and while you're at it, give us a subscribe as well. Why don't you hit the bell? That way you get notified every time I drop a new video. I try and drop them every week, but hey, it doesn't quite work out like that. If I do go a bit out of sync when I do release a video, you'll be the first to know. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll catch you later.